What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. Happy Halloween. Happy NFL trade deadline day. It snowed in Milwaukee here. It's still snowing. We got actual 2 inches of snow on the ground. So pretty wild stuff here, but come on in, get settled. We're going to hang out and go live for the next hour or so. We'll look at all the waiver wire action for you guys and answer any questions you guys may need. I did put a large waiver wire list together for you guys this week. So we'll kind of look at that. We'll go over some of the player news and things like that. Nothing too crazy for fantasy with the trade deadline today. Of course, the Vikings did get Josh Dobbs, but we can talk about that later when we get there. Good evening to Harris. Hope you're doing well, bud. What kicker would you pick up for this week? Interesting question. I'm assuming you have maybe you had the 49ers kicker on by. Let me pull up a league here where I have kickers and see what I can look for. Let's take a peek. Kickers this week, huh? Interesting. Okay. So I'm just filtering them by points scored. The Cowboys kicker might be a good one. He's low owned, only 42% rostered. Maybe the Cleveland Browns kicker, Dustin Hopkins here. He's 32% rostered. He's at home against the Cardinals. That could be a good one. He's also the fifth best kicker right now. I don't hate Blake Grupe, the New Orleans Saints kicker. I think he could be of use. He's only 5% rostered. And the Saints have been moving the ball pretty well here, 8, 9, 6, 12. He's been kicking field goals, so I don't hate this one here from Blake Grupe. Otherwise, maybe Kaimi Fairbairn at home against Tampa Bay. I don't hate this one. Those would probably be some of the names I'm looking at here. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get Young Hui Koo. A couple names for you there. But otherwise, Harris, I like going to FF today. I hit the stats tab. And down here, they have a fantasy colon here where it says you can hit fantasy points allowed to kickers. Right now, the Titans are allowing the most fantasy points to kicker. The Colts, the Commanders, you can maybe target some of these defenses here that allow kicker points. Good evening to Chase. In Dynasty Superflex, is Jared Hall worth stashing or just leaving on the wire? Probably not. He's going to get I guess we're talking about Minnesota right away. It's a bad sign that they went and traded for Josh Dobbs. I don't think they want to see Jared Hall play too many games for them. If anything, he's going to get the start this weekend, and if it goes well, that's fine. But I would imagine they're going to be prepping Dobbs to be the starter for next week here. So I think I'm in a super flex league. If you have the space, I'm fine with it, but I don't think he's a guy that he's probably not their starter next year. I think he's more of a developmental QB2 project for them. So I'm not sure I see a ton of value in Jared Hall. Good evening to Justin. Hope you're doing well. Happy Halloween. Jeff Wilson Jr. or Lenny, rest of season. Okay. So this is kind of a based on what you need. If you're a team that needs a potential running back now, it's Jeff Wilson Jr. I think in December is when Leonard Fournette could be entering our starting fantasy lineups. We have what, probably 4 games in November here. Leonard Fournette, one, has to kind of get up to playbook speed in Buffalo. He's also got to beat out Latavius Murray, which might take a couple games here. So I think if you're patient enough, I think the long-term game is Leonard Fournette. So rest of season question, that's what I'm looking for. But if you're a team that's got really light running backs right now, Jeff Wilson is a guy that interests me because he, anything happens to Raheem Mostert, we're going to be talking about starting Jeff Wilson in fantasy football. So I would say if you need someone for now, I'm holding Jeff Wilson. Otherwise, I think we're going to go with Leonard Fournette. And I just want to pull up the results from that Dolphins game. Let's take a peek here. So last weekend, we see Jeff Wilson get 19 snaps to Raheem Mostert's 43, 24 routes for Mostert, 10 for Wilson. Jeff Wilson did get 5 carries here. So he's eating, he took a step forward in terms of his workload this weekend. You still have Salvin Ahmed, who's healthy here. And I guess with Devon Achane coming back, I think in a week or two, maybe the correct answer just is Leonard Fournette, because this looks like a muddy backfield soon. You feel good about McBride versus Browns defense. No Dobbs throwing him the ball. You think volume changes. Well, you got Clayton Tune throwing him the ball. So, I don't know how true it is, but oftentimes I find that young quarterbacks, especially guys that we don't really know much about, they might look at McBride and think of him as a nice, easy target to dump points off too. So if I scroll on down here to the fantasy points allowed to the tight end, I believe they're number 1 against the tight end, but I could be wrong. Let's actually look at that. And yeah, the Browns are the number 1 defense against tight end. They've only allowed 133 yards, 16 catches, and 2 touchdowns. So not the most ideal matchup, but I mean, I think sometimes, this is due for regression here. I would say it wouldn't surprise me if he came out and got 8 to 10 fantasy points in PPR. So I'm okay with McBride if you need to, because he's purely a volume-based play right now. Let me type in Cardinals. So here are your numbers here for the tight end. So 62 snaps, 36 routes, 14 targets. And I know those were with Josh Dobbs, but he's going to be out there a lot. And if it is Clayton Tune, he might be getting some dump offs. Giants, Chargers, Colts defense this week. Giants, Chargers, or Colts defense this week. Let's go look at the DraftKings game lines and see what's going on here. And hey, guys, if you guys are new to the Fantasy Fellowship, I finally got filtered tables on the chart. I'm pretty excited about it. But I'm going to go by team total here. And these are the teams that are projecting to score the fewest amount of points. So Cleveland's a pretty good play. Atlanta's a great play. The Steelers are a good play. The Saints are a good play. I don't mind the Raiders if you need somebody in a pinch. They're just a little hard to trust. But the Chargers, Colts, and the Giants here. Let's see. I mean, they're projecting the Jets to score 19.25. The Chargers defense just has not been good at all. So I really don't want to mess with them, especially at New York Jets. Like, Jets are kind of a different team when they play in New York. So I'm going to cross the Chargers off the list. Now the Colts have really been struggling, and they're going to be going up against the Carolina Panthers, who finally got a win. They got maybe some momentum here. Carolina is an underdog at home, which is interesting, but I still find it hard to trust that Colts defense. I could easily see Adam Thielen and maybe even Jonathan Mingo or Chuba Hubbard making some plays. So it's coming down to the Giants, who have actually played relatively well. I think I'm going to go with the New York Giants here from that question. It's tough, though. That's a tough group there, Justin. D's nuts. My name is Jeff. Good evening. Send Jacobs and Sanders for JT. I mean, you should be able to get JT for Josh Jacobs straight up. I guess if he wants Miles Sanders, I'm okay with it. Sanders doesn't really have a lot of value for us at the moment right now, so we're kind of selling low on Sanders. He might have got hopped by Chuba Hubbard over the bye week and over the injuries here, because Chuba just basically took the whole role. 15 carries, only 2 for Sanders. 21 routes, only 10 for Sanders. 2 targets for Chuba. It was pretty much all Chuba in this one. So Sanders is kind of a stash at this point, but if that's what you have to send, like, I'm cool with going to get Jonathan Taylor. The Raiders offense, I mean, they didn't make any trades. I'm not really excited about it. Who knows how long Jimmy Garoppolo is going? So if you want to cash in Jacobs for JT, I think I'm okay with it there. These nuts. Douglas or Spears? That's a great one there, Justin. Douglas is one of my favorite ads of the week. I was fortunate enough to pick him up last week in a couple of my leagues. I was able to get him in some dynasty leagues last weekend even as well. So I think the usage for Douglas looks really good. And I know, what's his name? Derrick Henry didn't get traded, so that's fine. But we're talking about Kendrick Bourne being out for the year. Do we really trust Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Reagor? This looks really, really good for Demario Douglas. So to me, I think he might be the waiver wire ad of the week, especially if you need wide receivers. He comes out and he gets 41 snaps, 27 routes, 6 targets, 1 carry. He's gotten a handful of carries throughout the year here too. So I really like him. I think he could be a guy that's basically the only man that they might have to throw the ball to on a routine basis here. And he gets to do a lot of cool different things. They move him around. They like to try to give him the ball in space, and he's also a deep threat. I think he has a really good yard after catch number 2. So to me, it's Demario Douglas. Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears is never going to be a startable asset, I think, unless Henry were to miss time. Otherwise he's going to get you your 6 or 7 points. So I think Demario Douglas could be the guy that really helps us down the stretch here. Need RB help? All right, Brian. Like Playoff Lenny, would you clear all FOB or $9 or go like $3? I mean, I don't know if anyone else is going to be all gung-ho to get him. If it were me, I would probably try and add him for free tomorrow morning if you wanted to. I mean, at this point, the $9, if you really want the guy, you can just pay the maybe $5 for him and see what happens and see if you can save a few bucks here. It really depends on your league mates if you think other people are going to go for him, but maybe the $4 or $5 range there. It's we're betting on a 28-year-old back here. And yes, a good offense, but I don't think he's going to come in and steal a ton of work from James Cook. I think he's going to come and take the work from Latavius Murray. And then the bet is, can he do more than Latavius Murray did? So I think the $3-4 range is probably where I'd be. Brian says, start Roschon or add Charbonnet. I think at this point, I'm not super excited about the Bears backfield. Let's take a look at this. So it was a freaking mess last weekend. I mean, with Darrington Evans coming in to steal the goal line touchdown too, of all things, that was pretty annoying. But Roschon led the team in snaps, ran the most routes, 4 targets and 5 carries. So if he's going to get 10 opportunities a game, I do like that. But maybe he's not the goal line back, which is frustrating. And they do like Darrington Evans in the passing game. Like, imagine if Evans was gone here and you had 8 Roschon targets. So this one's kind of messy. Whereas with Seattle, like, we know Charbonnet is the running back too. So I tend to lean into that clarity. And then you also have the Seattle Seahawks are just a better offense than the Bears. So I think I'm adding Charbonnet here. But if you have to start one this week and Kenneth Walker's healthy, it's a tougher decision, but I think I'm still going to go Charbonnet. I'm going to pick between Pitts versus McBride, tight end premium, by the way. Who does Kyle Pitts play this weekend? Kyle Pitts versus the Saints, I believe. No, they play the Vikings. So Minnesota, I'm going to lean with Kyle Pitts, I think. And if Taylor Heineke is the starting quarterback, that makes me even more comfortable with Kyle Pitts because I think Heineke's a better passer. So for now, I think I'm going to lean Kyle Pitts here, Chase. Ford or Henderson full PPR. So it's a really good matchup for Henderson as well as Royce Freeman there. Whereas Jerome Ford going up against the Arizona Cardinals, this is a really good matchup too. The Cardinals ranked 30th here. I think I got to go with Jerome Ford in a game where they're favored at home by a decent amount. Ford looked good last weekend in his return. I know there's a couple other bodies there, but I think I'm going to go with Jerome Ford here. But honestly, Chase, these are probably both decent bets to hit double digits this weekend. And yeah, the Packers defense, pretty good matchup, pretty easy matchup for running backs as well. What do I do? PPR. Do I hold a kicker through the bye, pick up Dak Prescott or another QB? I mean, I tend to not want to hold kickers over a bye week. Pick up Dak Prescott or another QB a week ahead of my QB's bye. Pick up Browns defense. I have the Saints, or pick up a wide. So I mean, I think you have the Saints defense against the Bears this week, and I think that's startable. So I'm going to leave that. There's a lot of moving parts in here, Harris. I probably would just get rid of my kicker over the bye week, and I don't want to burn a roster spot on a kicker just for a week. I find myself using 2 to 3 kickers throughout the year anyways, moving, situation to situation. So, and I'm cool with picking up Dak Prescott if that's what you're going to do. I think I got everything answered in there. Do we trust Romeo rest of season? Kinda. He's just been getting the touchdowns, which has been super nice. The Packers offense, consider this, Justin, the Packers have been playing like garbage, and Romeo Doubs still ends up playing well. I mean, I love seeing the 9 targets. He didn't really have a lot of output with that besides the touchdown. So I don't know if I trust him yet, but I think if he's like my wide receiver 4 on a team, I'm feeling pretty good about that because it's like, if I need to start Romeo Doubs on a bye week, that's not a bad place to be. So don't know if I fully trust him just yet, but if the Packers offense even takes a little step forward, this could be a really nice player that we could trust down the line. Dylan Hubbard or Spears full PPR for RB2. Dylan Hubbard or Spears full PPR RB2. I'm gonna go with Chuba Hubbard just because he's getting the touches. Sure, that could change this weekend in terms of matchup though. against Indianapolis, this is a pretty solid matchup for Chuba Hubbard here. So I'm going to lean with Chuba. I would rank them Chuba, Dylan, Spears. That might not be a bad idea. I don't think Palmer's going to play this weekend. He did re-injure his knee in the game last weekend. So we'll watch the reports there, Chase, throughout the week. Look at Finn's defense rest of season. The Dolphins defense. Where are the Miami Dolphins? Alrighty. So they're going to get the Raiders, the Jets, the Commanders, the Titans, the Jets, and then 2 tough games against the Cowboys and the Ravens. But I do think, and 3 of these 5 games are at home. So I think if you wanted to pick up the Dolphins over their bye week, because they might get dropped or something, you could potentially get 5 startable games against some bottom defenses or bottom offenses here. So that's a nice catch there, Justin. Would you start Packers defense this week over Giants? I think so. The Packers defense, it's been okay. I mean, that's been one of the okay pieces of this defense. They do get sacks. They get turnovers every now and then. They did block a field goal or something the other day too here. So I don't expect Brett Rippon to come in and light the scoreboard up. So I don't mind the Packers. And them being at home, it's going to be cold in Green Bay this weekend. I think I trust the Packers over the Giants. And yeah, I'm cool with Evan McPherson there, Harris. And honestly, now that Joe Burrow and the offense is kind of settled in, I actually think, yeah, he's my kicker in this league here. So I'm into McPherson. I think he's going to be getting 1 to 2 field goal opportunities per game. He's going to be able to get you 2 or 3 extra points per game here too. So I like McPherson rest of season. I think we're going to see some consistency and stability from the Bengals going forward. Full PPR start 2. Downs, Nico, or Dotson. Okay. Downs, Nico, or Dotson. So we finally got the Jahan Dotson, boom game that we were waiting for all season. It took Curtis Samuel to miss for it to happen. In terms of matchups to the wide receivers here, though, it does look like Josh Downs, Nico Collins, and Dotson here. Let me look and see. So Tampa Bay is pretty bad against wide receivers. So I'm into Nico, especially Nico at home. I think that's a sweet spot there. Josh Downs going up against, I believe, the Carolina Panthers, right? So it's a tough matchup for Josh Downs, but he's just been so steady lately. And whereas Jahan Dotson's, they're on the road against New England. Where is the New England Patriots on this list? So they rank 19th. It's not a bad matchup for Jahan Dotson, but he's kind of hard to trust. So I'm going to lean with who I trust. I think that's Nico and Downs. If you told me Curtis Samuel wasn't going to play, I might change my answer. But in a full PPR league, just give me my 10 to 12 Downs points. And then I do think Nico could have we just saw Gabe Davis is a pretty good comp for Nico Collins, right? Body-wise and stylistically how they play. We could see Nico Collins have a nice game against Tampa Bay, just like Gabe did last weekend. So I'll go with those 2. Henderson or Chuba Hubbard non-PPR. Yeah, I really like both guys this weekend. I think I'm going to lean with Chuba Hubbard because Henderson is splitting time with Royce Freeman, and they did give the goal line plunge touchdown to Royce Freeman last weekend. Whereas if it's Chuba in there, I would imagine Chuba gets the goal line carry. And again, it's a good matchup. Indianapolis ranks 28th here. They've allowed 11 rushing touchdowns, and they've allowed a lot of receiving numbers here too. So I'm going to lean with Chuba. The Packers, again, they are not a great defense, but you can run on them. So I'll go Chuba over Henderson here. Yeah, that's a good question there. Let's actually. If we just go to my list here, I don't know if any of these guys are available, but I really think Demario Douglas is going to be the wide receiver 1 the rest of the season for the Patriots. That's hard to find. I thought Mingo actually looked pretty good too, but I'm gonna with Thielen playing how he's playing, I'm gonna go with Douglas. If you needed a tight end and McBride or Kincaid are there, I might put McBride over Douglas. But to me, I really think it's Demario Douglas. I'm assuming. Gus Edwards, Chuba, Henderson, Royce Freeman, and Charbonnet. Assuming all of these guys are gone, I think it's Demario Douglas. That's my pickup of the week. The consolation, It might be Khalil Shakir, who had a nice game last week, and I think he's going to be hard to trust. Being the third, fourth target for Josh Allen every week, I don't know if we're going to trust that, but he's on the radar and he's worth a stash just in case Gabe or Stephon Diggs miss a game. But I think the guy that's got the staying power going forward is going to be Demario Douglas. Did the Giants play the Raiders? Did I mess something up here? The Giants, no, I think we're good. Maybe I just said something wrong here. The Giants do play the Raiders. I think that game's in Las Vegas. Let me actually look at the spreads here. Yeah, Raiders versus the Giants. Yeah, Jacobs is getting the volume, so it makes sense for Jacobs to continue being a fantasy asset. Even though the Raiders are not playing great football, they're still going to give the ball a ton to Josh Jacobs. And I thought for a second there last night, I thought the Raiders had the Lions on the ropes, because that one drive with Josh Jacobs, they just ran it down their throats and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it anymore after that here, but Jacobs still playing well. Touchdowns have been coming for him. 3 touchdowns in the last 5 games for Jacobs. Any news on Curtis Samuel? So with it being Tuesday, no team really, the only teams that put out reports on Tuesday is going to be the Thursday night guys. And I didn't think I saw anything from Curtis Samuel here. I don't think he's going to play this weekend. He was limited and missed some practice all last week with the foot, and then he re-injured it this weekend. So they might just be cautious with Curtis. So I think we're going to lean towards no Curtis this weekend. When Watson comes back, would you start him over Brock Purdy? Probably not. I think my trust in Deshaun Watson is completely gone. He tried to play again with that shoulder, ended up costing general fantasy managers, the minus whatever points he got. So I'm not super excited about Watson. I am excited about Purdy. I'm excited about that offense with CMC, Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk. I will be starting Purdy over Watson if that's my decision. And yeah, let's pull that up. That's a good thought there. So here we go. Dameon Pierce still led the team in running back snaps, but not by much, 25 to 23. It looks like 10 carries for Singletary, 12 for Pierce. So Pierce still gets a slight edge in carries. 2 targets for Singletary, 0 for Pierce. This is the weird part here. So he's still running a little bit of routes, but no targets. The biggest issue is Mike Boone coming out of nowhere here. He only got 1 carry, but the 1 target in the 8 routes run. I wish all of these Mike Boone stats would just go into Pierce and Singletary, because then maybe we get a little bit more fantasy points off these guys here. But Singletary basically forcing a 50-50 split right now. Here is the pie charts here. You can see basically 50-50 between Singletary and Pierce. Early downs is a slight edge to Dameon Pierce. Goal line work is still Dameon's, though. None for Devin Singletary on the goal line. So eventually Dameon Pierce is going to fall into the end zone. They did give Singletary some short yardage work, and then third downs belong to Mike Boone and some Devin Singletary. All good, Christian. You think Puka plays? What's the update on his knee injury? That one seems more precautionary here. It didn't sound like, I know he was able to finish the game and whatnot here. So unfortunately, I don't have any more news on it. I'm trying to refresh the Twitter feed here, but it's not working. I think he's going to be fine. But yeah, I did see he was listed with a question mark, and I'm just looking for any updates here. Yeah, I think he's going to be fine, but we'll see tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him the day off tomorrow. So I'm not gonna react. It does say that he had some knee swelling. He might take it easy in practice this week, Sean McVay says. So we're gonna need more practice notes here. It just says knee swelling, nothing specific here. So maybe just a little sprain. Gus Edwards a solid start now? I think so. Gus Edwards came in and looked really good against it was against the Cardinals. So I just want to note that. A lot of running backs look good against the Cardinals this year, but 19 carries to Justice Hill's 4. That's a big one, and they still use Justice Hill a lot. They had him run a lot of snaps, a lot of routes. He even got 4 targets, but the amount of carries that Gus Edwards got made me feel pretty good, and he still gets a couple targets per game here. So it looks like Gus Edwards finally took the lead as the lead back here for the Ravens. I don't think it's let me look and see where the Seahawks are here in terms of fantasy points here. The Seahawks rank 17th in PPR points per game. That's 20.47. They've allowed 6 rushing touchdowns here. They've been allowing a lot of receiving work to the running back here. So it's a okay matchup for Gus Edwards. He still needs that touchdown to make your day. So I'm thinking between 50 and 70 yards, and then that 50% chance of a touchdown here. So he's startable. Mixon is back. Mixon looked good. The few big plays that I saw him make in that game, I thought he looked pretty fine. He's still running back 20 on the year, but got the touchdown, had his best yardage output, his best yards per carry output, and he did his normal receiving work here. So I'm not willing to say that he's back yet. He's got a tough matchup here against Buffalo, but off the bye, I would say he looked fresh. He played his best game of the season. So I don't know if he's back, but I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about Joe Mixon. And yeah, Harris, I think you have to like Atlanta's defense this weekend. One, they're at home, and I think they've been playing pretty well for the most part of the season. And now you're going to get an unproven rookie quarterback in Jared Hall here. We don't really trust the Vikings to run the ball all that well. So we're looking at a good start here for Atlanta. I would be shocked if Jared Hall comes in and the Vikings let up the scoreboard here. So I think they're going to try and run the ball, burn clock, and not take too many mistakes here. So I do like Atlanta's defense. I think it's a top 5 play this week. Johnson or Gabe Davis? Johnson. Who's Johnson? Is that Quentin? If it's Quentin Johnston, is it Johns? Is it might be Deontay. If it's Deontay or Gabe Davis, I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson. He has the safe high floor. Tennessee Titans defense is just not good against the wide receivers here. If you look, they rank 29th here. They've allowed, I think, the second most receptions. No, they've allowed a lot of receptions, though. So it's a pretty sweet matchup for these wide receivers here. I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson over Gabe Davis. Howell or Stroud? So I really want to trust CJ Stroud at home against the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense isn't very good against the quarterback, but that's because most of their points came against rushing touchdowns. So I think this may be a little bit misleading here. Whereas the New England Patriots at home against Sam Howell, I mean, I think I kind of want to just take the 16 points that the Patriots are allowing here. Howell's been playing really good. I think he's a top 10 quarterback right now. So I'm going to lean Sam Howell just because I think the ceiling is there for him to throw, 3 touchdowns again in this one here. But Stroud's the safe play, but I'm going to go for Howell. Thoughts on Dobbs rest of season? Good question here. Where is Mr. Dobbs? Let me look at fantasy points here. So Romeo's kind of he's making his way on touchdowns. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he had one good game, 9 for 95. His other games where he doesn't score touchdowns, 1.4 and 5 points. So we need Romeo to start performing well without the touchdowns. I mean, if you look at his output from the last 2 games, 6 catches for 48 yards, that's not startable, even hardly startable in one game. 6 for 48, that's 10.8 points. So I'm slightly concerned about the lack of receptions and yardage here, but again, he catches touchdowns. I mean, he's a guy that I'm never going to feel comfortable starting, but he's a guy that can win my week for me. We see the 9 for 95, the 5 for 73 and a touchdown. He's got that in him most weeks, but I think right now the Packers are just continuously shooting themselves in the foot offensively, whether it's penalties or drops or just stupid errors. So I think it's a multitude of things. I do like Romeo Dobbs, and I think I might actually rather start him than Christian Watson if I had to choose one Packer receiver. So I still like Romeo Dobbs, but yeah, we really need to. 9 targets is great, but we need more than 4 for 18. But hey, as long as he's scoring touchdowns, I like it. We just need to start seeing, if he can be between 5 and 9 catches and 70 yards, like that would be sweet. He can't be having these 30-yard games anymore. And yes, Christian, Javonte is back. And It's kind of funny because like all summer long, like we were looking at Breece Hall and Javante, like wondering like, are these guys going to help us win, in November? And it looks like Javante can. I mean, 27 carries in this game against the Chiefs, only one for P. Ryan, three for McLaughlin. They all had 3 targets, which I would like to see more targets out of Javante Williams. But Javante really took over the backfield in this game against the Chiefs. So the arrow's pointing up here. I think he might be a buy if you want to try and like if someone's trying to sell high or whatever on Javante Williams. I might be open to buying him because we know the Saints, the Broncos want to run the ball. What do we do with Zay Jones and Dynasty? Dude can't stay healthy. Not much we can do, man. He's not somebody that people want to trade for, and one of these days he's going to be healthy. He's nothing more than just like a deep flex play. I do have Zay Jones on a couple of my Dynasty teams. And basically, he's more of a guy that I just whip out there in bye weeks. But for now, we kind of got to hold on to him. I don't think you're going to be able to get any value for him in a trade, unfortunately. Atlanta or Ravens defense this weekend. I'm going to lean with Atlanta just because I think the matchup's a lot better for the Falcons going up against the Jaren Hall-led Vikings. Seattle's got a good offense. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and the Jigba coming around here. I wouldn't be surprised if Geno Smith had a nice game or if Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet combined for a good game on the ground here. So I think that one might be a little bit more high scoring in that one. I'm going to lean the Falcons going up against the Vikings. Should I move on with Stroud or go after a waiver QB like Baker, Daniel Jones, etc.? Keep Stroud. It was a tough game last weekend, but the Panthers, we kind of thought that the Panthers defense was a pushover, but they're actually okay. Like they got some guys back healthy last weekend. They're still missing their all-pro corner, J.C. Horn, I believe. But the Panthers are a good defense. And Stroud still came through with a decent, like he had an okay game for fantasy, not the best game, but I'm sticking with Stroud. I just don't trust Baker. For sure, don't trust Daniel Jones. Has a top defense in the red zone. Probably Atlanta or New England. I want to lean with Atlanta in this one just because I think the Commanders' offense can put up points. We just saw them play Philadelphia really, really tough for the second time this season. The area that I like for New England, though, if you want to play New England, the Commanders just give up so many dang sacks per game. They're on pace to set the most. I think they're going to have the record for the most sacks allowed in a season right now. So typically when a team's throwing that many passes and getting sacked that much times, you usually want to play the defense against them. So I do think New England is a fine streaming defense this weekend, but I'm going to lean with Atlanta in this one. I don't hate it. It sounds like Kenny Pickett's going to play. It should be a low-scoring game. Titans, really good run defense. You can't really run on them, so I could see the Steelers' offense struggling. And yeah, I get it if you don't like the Packers. Packers are kind of hard to trust right now. But Brett Rippon and that offense shouldn't be a high-scoring game in Green Bay for sure. I actually want to pull up those game lines. Where were those? Let's take a peek here. So team total. I mean, they're projecting the Steelers to score about 19.5. They're projecting the LA Rams to score about the same, 19 points. So they're both kind of in the same boat there, Justin. Would you trade Zay Flowers for Javante? I'm open to it, especially if you need a running back and say you had some pretty good backup wide receivers. Zay Flowers has been nice, but he's not like – I don't view him as a guy that can win your week for you. A great game from him is about 17 points, as you can see here. Otherwise, he's kind of just like a floor guy. 10 to 12 points is kind of his floor, whereas Javante Williams, I mean, if we can plug in a running back that's going to get the ball a ton, that's way more valuable than a fringe wide receiver 3 here. And he's starting to heat up. He had 2 nice good games in a row, getting catches, getting touchdowns. I'm open to this one, Justin. And Jeff Wilson for Javante. Yeah, go ahead and try it. Chuba or Rice this week, full PPR. I think you got to go with Rice. This game, it's cool. It's going to be in Frankfurt, Germany. But the Chiefs are projected to score the most points of the weekend, 26.5. If that's 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals, there's a good chance that one of those touchdowns is Rashee Rice's. And I want to bet on the Chiefs rebounding in this one. Again, it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's got the highest game total in it. I want to go with Rashee Rice. They did get Justin Watson back in this game here, so he came back and stole some snaps. But this is the first game of the year that Rashee has led the team in snaps and targets for wide receivers here. So I like Rice. Arrow continues to be pointing up here for him. I do want to look around and see if there's anybody else that we can maybe call out as waiver wire plays here. Let's go ahead and filter by percent rostered tab. We got a handful of good players on bye. You got CMC, ETN, Jahmyr Gibbs. This might be the last chance you guys can get to buy David Montgomery before he returns. And we did see Jahmyr Gibbs have a really nice game last night. But the first half wasn't so nice. It took him that big run to kind of get there. So I do think buying low on David Montgomery makes a little bit of a sense here. But I want to look at more waiver wire stash type plays. I think I'm still stashing Roschon. Continue to stash Jeff Wilson, Chuba Hubbard. You can stash Gibson maybe. I might have to cut Antonio Gibson in this league. But otherwise, yeah, Tajee Spears. 6.6 points. Like he's got a decent floor here. I don't hate holding on to Spears. If you guys can make sure you hold on to him in full PPR, that's where he's at. Go ahead and pick up Devin Singletary. Pick up Zach Charbonnet if you can. We're entering handcuff season, guys. So Zach Charbonnet needs to be picked up. Singletary, Elijah Mitchell should be picked up. Maybe even Kenneth Gainwell. We saw Kenneth Gainwell get some run last weekend. 2 for -4 as a rusher, but 5 for 30 as a receiver. If DeAndre Swift misses any time, we're going to be talking about Kenneth Gainwell on the waiver wire show for sure. I really thought Gibby was going to get traded. Thoughts on sending Zach Wilson, Dobbs, in the 24th third for Ayuk? I'm a contender, and he just lost Kirk. Yeah, I mean, that 2024 third's not really going to yield you any good player. You know, that's kind of like swinging for the fences on that pick. So that's kind of useless. If you're not needing Zach Wilson, I'm fine with sending Zach Wilson away. And then it's a considerable upgrade from Ayuk compared to Romeo Dobbs here. So if that's what it takes to get Ayuk, I mean, Ayuk's really good, man. I think he's got a really good future ahead of him. And if he's tied to Brock Purdy and we know Deebo Samuel's getting up there and he gets injured every now and then, I think I like it. I'll go ahead and get Brandon Ayuk here. Other running backs that I want to note to stash, you got to continue to stash Royce Freeman while Kieran Williams is away. Kendre Miller, maybe. Like they actually used Kendre a little bit last weekend. He did get 3 carries and he caught a ball. So I'm keeping my eye on Kendre Miller. Keep an eye on Pierre Strong. With Kareem Hunt dinged up and Jerome Ford ankle, if anything happens to one of these guys, I mean, Pierre Strong, 10 for 41 last weekend, 1 for 41 as a receiver. Keep an eye on Pierre Strong, file that name away. You guys can stash Leonard Fournette if you wish. Otherwise, I want to talk about Rico Dowdle here for a little bit. 5 for 18 last week, 2 for 7 as a receiver. He's the handcuff to Tony Pollard. And Tony Pollard has not been playing great. I don't know if it's part of the foot injury he's had in the past because, yeah, he broke his foot last year. I don't know if he lost some explosiveness to that. I don't know if he can actually handle a full workload anyways. Maybe we see Rico Dowdle continue to handle 5 to 10 touches per game. And, hey, if anything happens to Tony Pollard, I think Rico Dowdle is going to be the guy. So I like to file him away. Otherwise, yeah, it's getting pretty ugly down here, down this far. Pittsburgh Steelers or New England. I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. I know everyone's kind of excited about Will Levis, but usually these sports books know what they're doing, and they're projecting the Titans to only score 16.5 points. We saw Will Levis not afraid to just wing it downfield. That could lead to some interceptions and things like that. So I think I'm going to start the Steelers. And typically, Thursday Night Football usually is lower scoring than most games here. You can see there's only 36 implied points in this game here. So I'm going to lean with the Steelers at home, short week against a rookie quarterback, making his second career start. I'm going to go with the Steelers there, Harris. Let me see if I can find some stash receivers for you guys. Let's go deep. I'm going to go into the under 50% tab here. A lot of Romeo Dobbs questions. I think he's still a hold. I mean, if you wanted to try and sell him, he's been catching touchdowns. You can maybe try and sell him if you want. Again, we're going to be watching the health of Curtis Samuel. I'm open to Treylon Burks being a stash. We did just see Levis again throw the ball deep downfield to DeAndre Hopkins for a pretty good game. He didn't catch a ball last week and he only had 2 targets, but I'm open to seeing what Burks can do. We mentioned the Kendrick Bourne injury that's going to open it up for Demario Douglas. And then the guy to really keep an eye in here is Quentin Johnston. I know he didn't have a good game week 7, but 5 for 50 last week, 6 targets with Josh Palmer ailing. This maybe is the beginning of something nice. Now, it's not a great matchup against the Jets, but after that, you're going to get the Lions, the Packers, the Ravens, the Patriots. There's some opportunities here for Quentin Johnston to maybe get some momentum going. So I like him as a stash play. You can maybe pick up Zay Jones, but when he plays, he's been fine. But it doesn't. I would imagine they're going to hold him. Maybe we see Zay Jones back week 10 against the 49ers. Otherwise, I don't hate Jaden Reed as a stash play. 4 for 83. He's had a couple nice games here. He's had 4 games over double digits, 1 just almost to double digits. Excuse me. But Jaden Reed's a guy that I think he's a good player. Watson, hard to trust right now. I think Jaden Reed's a guy that I could maybe see getting more work on his plate down the season. The guy that I really like stashing for rookies is Michael Wilson. He had a decent game against the Ravens, 4 for 58 on 6 targets. He's been pretty productive as a rookie here. He did have the big 2 touchdown game against the Niners in week 4, but we're seeing, 86 yards, 76, 62, 58. He's a big play outside guy. And with Kyler Murray back probably for week 10, this could be something fun to monitor for the rest of the season. I mentioned Jonathan Mingo as a player here. Unfortunately, with Marvin Mims, Jared Jeudy or Cortland Sutton did not get traded, so the Mims breakout's not happening anytime soon. Other names that I wouldn't mind monitoring down here, again, there's Demario Douglas, who I think Demario Douglas is probably my favorite waiver wire pickup. I know it didn't really translate to fantasy points in week 8, but 5 for 25, 7 targets, 1 for 4 as a rusher. The week before against Buffalo, 4 for 54, 6 targets, 1 for 20. I think you're probably looking at, this 8 to 12 point range for him in full PPR. That seems to make sense to me. Gerald Everett or Tyler Higbee for week 10. Week 10, you say, huh? Let me see here. Alrighty, week 10. Week 10, you have the Lions. Gerald Everett versus the Lions. I think I like that. Whereas Higbee and the Rams. Where are the Rams? Why can't I read? Week 10, the Rams are on bye there, Harris. So it looks like you're going with Everett, and the Lions do allow tight end points here. I believe up until last night they were allowing the most tight end points per game. So I'm going to say Gerald Everett. As long as Everett's healthy, he's probably the play. Let me just double check here for you. And yeah, Detroit ranks 29th here. They're allowing 14.71 points per game. It's a good week to play tight ends against the Lions. Nate from We Are Family, what's up? Just pulled a 4-for-1 trade to get Bijan, so we'll be looking for 3 stashes. Okay, let's handle a couple more stashes for you. I did mention Demario Douglas. It's probably my favorite stash of the week. This might be too deep of stashes here, and I really don't see any names on this third page here. So I'm going to go back to page 2. Guys down here that might be available. Again, I mentioned Demario Douglas. Maybe Jalen Hyatt. Maybe. What did Chase Claypool do last week? 1 for 15 and 2 targets. I do like Jonathan Mingo here, Nate. If Mingo is available, I think, 4 for 62. He had his first 62-yard game here. If that continues to hold up, that could be nice. I don't hate Wan'Dale Robinson, Michael Wilson, Jaden Reed. Adding rookie wide receivers for the back end of the stretch does seem pretty good. Oh, one more guy here is going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones. He was the one that got traded today. He's now on the Lions. He's in a contract year here, and I like the schedule. So I don't mind babysitting Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think that might be a nice pickup there if you're looking for a stash wide receiver. Would you rather send Palmer or Dobbs in that trade for Ayuk? Man, Palmer and Dobbs are both very, very similar. I think I'm going to probably keep Palmer just because he's attached to Herbert. Whereas we don't really know what's going on with the Packers right now. So I'm going to say Palmer, I'd rather keep. Hall or PJ Walker? If I had to start one this week, it's going to be PJ Walker against the Cardinals. I have no QB2. Should I stash Kyler Murray? If this is just a one QB league, Nate, I don't think you need to stash. I technically don't. I wouldn't recommend having two quarterbacks on your team. If it's a one quarterback league, I don't like burning a second quarterback spot in my roster. The only way that I typically when I'm drafting my fantasy teams in the summer, I don't mind drafting two because you don't know which one's going to hit. But after a while, I only like to carry one. You can pick up Kyler Murray and see what happens. I mean, you have the open spot, so I don't hate it. Otherwise, I mean, Howell needs to be picked up. There might not be anybody else down here that young. Actually, I think Bryce Young's been playing some decent ball. He's had 2 games where he's gotten 7 points, but otherwise 13, 18, 12, and 14. A nice game coming off the bye here. I don't mind Bryce Young. The league thinks I'm crazy, but it's a 10-teamer house. I love adding 3 stashers to see. Yeah, it's kind of like you're making a farm system here. So I'll throw out some running backs here for you, Nate. See if I can find anybody. I'm going to go to page 2. All of these running backs are going to be under 36% rostered. I would assume Tajay's gone, but Singletary, Charbonnet, it's stash season for me. So Elijah Mitchell, Kenneth Gainwell, Josh Kelly, maybe Royce Freeman, Kendre Miller. I like Pierre Strong, Leonard Fournette, Rico Dowdle. Those are probably the guys that I'm looking at stashing for running back. So in your case, Nate, you can yeah. So when is Lamar's? I think he's got time yet. So I don't know if you need one. Yeah, we're good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you have a whole month yet. So I personally wouldn't roster a backup quarterback for a month when I'd rather put my chips in those running back stashes or those wide receiver stashes, because if something happens to a starter there, you got something. Whereas I would imagine week 13, we only need to get 12 to 15 points from that quarterback off the waiver wire. So I'm not going to hold on to a QB2 just for one game. And you're starting Lamar every week here. So I think I'd rather load up on those running backs, wide receivers, and maybe even a backup tight end if you needed somebody. Let me look at some tight end stash plays here, if there's anybody that I can find. Kincaid again. Jake Ferguson's one of my favorites. I think Logan Thomas is decent here. I'm not sure what's up with Gerald Everett. I thought he was going to play. He did have 2 nice games. He caught touchdowns week 6 and 7, didn't play week 8. But again, I'm eyeing up that juicy week 9 and 10 because the Jets are really bad against tight end, and so are the Lions. The Jets here ranked 26th against tight end. The Lions ranked 29th. Let me see what else I can find here as far as tight ends go. Keep an eye on Chig Okonkwo. He did get 6 targets, 4 for 23. He even got a carry, which was weird. But hey, if he's going to see 6 targets a game with Will Levis going forward, I'm going to keep an eye on that. Obviously, Taysom Hill needs to be picked up. Trey McBride would be the big winner here. And then I know it didn't really connect for Michael Mayer last night, but he's still getting a lot of usage in terms of snaps and routes. Tight end's kind of ugly. Cade Otton's not a bad one. 9 and 8 points the last couple games here. And then, yeah, I agree. I really like Rico Dowdle. I think he's a fine RB2 right now. And I think we might even see his base role grow, where even if Pollard's healthy, we might start to see Rico get some touches and some carries to keep Tony Pollard fresh. So this is definitely a stash that I'm gonna probably look for this week. In my league here that I'm looking at, I'm all out of waiver wire bucks, so I have to add players for free, the morning after the waiver wire runs. But I absolutely love it because typically the way my brain works is I'm trying to be a week ahead or two on stashing these players. So last week I picked up Demario Douglas, and something good happened by me doing that. So I think Rico Dowdle could be one of those players where, yeah, you just hold on to him for a week or two, and who knows, maybe some good things happen. Would you pick up Singletary if you have Pierce? I would. In the league that we're looking at here, I did that exact thing. I'm still starting Dameon Pierce in hopes that he finally gets that touchdown. The dude's been so close. It feels like he should have 6 or 7 touchdowns on the year, but only one. And they've been so close on the 1 yard line. It's been insane. So I would go after Singletary if I have Pierce. I got Kittle. Yes. I'm a waiver for 2. Oh, wow. Both Kincaid and McBride. Fantastic. Yeah. Hopefully you can get one of those guys. Both fantastic. I do like Kincaid better than McBride this weekend, just based on matchup. I think that Buffalo Bills Cincinnati Bengals game could be kind of fun. A lot of points in there. Josh Allen's gonna have to air it out, so I would prefer Kincaid. Otherwise, McBride does. I think McBride's like a startable tight end for the rest of the season. I don't know when we're gonna get Zach Ertz back, but we shall see. But keep the questions coming, guys. We'll hang out for a couple more minutes. Otherwise, I will let you guys go. I'm trying to think of anybody else here. We tried to cover as many players as possible. We went over in Superflex leagues. Keep an eye on Desmond Ridder. Big practice report coming tomorrow if he practices or not. He's got the concussion protocol that he's going to have to get through. We might see Taylor Heineke play this weekend, which actually would lift everybody. And I don't know if Chase is in here still too, but I do want to note that Drake London left the game last week with a groin injury. So we might see like Kyle Pitts get a ton of targets if it's Taylor Heineke. So keep an eye on Drake London. Keep an eye on Desmond Ridder. We have to really pay attention to the Atlanta Falcons practice report tomorrow, guys. Interesting. So for me, I'm the guy that wakes up at 2:30 a.m. after waivers is processed, and I'm the one adding the guys for $0. That's just typically how it goes. Now, my league this year, my league voted to push waivers back. So tonight, I'm not putting waiver claims in or anything like that. We do it tomorrow night. So it's a 2-day waiver system. So I'll wake up Thursday morning, 2:30 a.m. and I'll scavenge the waiver wire for some free ads. But that's just how it goes. But yeah, anything else here that I can find? Humanity Unbound. Thoughts on Kmet versus New Orleans and Taysom versus Chicago. I find it really hard to trust Cole Kmet right now. Let's look at his numbers. I'm still holding out hope for Kmet when Justin Fields returns. 10 for 79 last week was really nice, but 0 the week before. Now, unfortunately, it's a really, really tough matchup against the Saints. I believe the Saints are one of the better teams against the tight end. Let me look and double check that. They rank 7th best. They have allowed 3 touchdowns, though, but they are one of the better teams limiting tight end production, whereas the Chicago Bears, they do rank 24th. It's a good spot for tight ends, and we know Taysom Hill's not really a tight end, but Taysom Hill, he can run, he can throw, he can catch, he can do everything. And in a game where it's in New Orleans, I think Taysom Hill is the safe play, and I think I'm going to say start Taysom Hill. I don't know what I'm getting when I start Cole Kmet. He had a nice game last week with Badgett, but the Chargers defense is just really not good, and the Chargers do allow a lot of tight end points here. So I think I think I'm going to play Taysom Hill in this question. I'm trying to deal Henderson to RB Desperate Team this week. If I can't move him, we'll have to drop him. No long-term value there. That's a great question. Let me see. I'm seeing Kieran Williams could return for week 12. So with that being said, we are in week 9. Let me see. Where is Darrell Henderson Jr.? So they get Green Bay this weekend, then they're on bye, and then they get Seattle. So you really only get 2 more starts with Darrell Henderson. Say Kieran Williams comes back week 12, we're probably not playing Darrell Henderson. So it's a 2-game potential starting opportunity for Darrell Henderson. I don't think I hate dropping him, especially because he's got a bye sandwiched in between those 2 games here. So if you're not going to use him, we can let him go. I think rest of season we're gonna see Kieran Williams come back and get the majority of his touches, and if not, Henderson's gonna be in the committee as the number 2, and Royce Freeman too. So I think it could be messy. I don't hate having to drop him. I mean, if you can sell Henderson for something that you just want on your bench, I'm fine with it. I'm fine for kind of selling cheaply, but I do like Henderson. I just don't know what to expect when Kieran Williams comes back. Someone dropped Russ Wilson when you picked them up and stashed them for QB's buy. It depends on who the QB is, what's the week, and who's Russell Wilson playing that week. Russ has been nice. Not going to lie. Russ Wilson's been playing good football. He's going to get Buffalo. I want to play him against Minnesota. I don't want to play him against Cleveland, though. So if it's week 10 or 12, Harris, not really interested. If it's week 14, I want to play him against the Chargers, maybe against Houston. So as long as your quarterback doesn't have a bye week 10 or 12, I'm fine with it. But again, I don't love burning a bench spot with a quarterback, but I'm open to it in your case. Hopkins too? Wow. Fantastic. Yeah, it always feels good to be able to pick players up off waiver wire and then flip them. That's one of my favorite things to do. I don't like to actually sell the assets that I drafted. I like to use my waiver wire pickups and things to cash in on moves. So nice strategy there, Nate. I don't think Gus is going to bite you. It was one game, and it was a cupcake matchup against the Cardinals. We'll see if he can do it again back to back. Then I might change my tune here. I do like Gus, but I don't think he's like a must-start running back to rest of season all of a sudden. And you do have Mahomes, so it's for what week is Mahomes on bye? So it's week 10. Russell Wilson at Buffalo. Not a huge fan. It's at Buffalo, so I'm probably going to pass on Russ Wilson week 10 there, Harris. I like to do that too. Because when you drop a player, they go onto the waivers for whatever. So I typically drop players on Saturday. With my league being a 2-day waiver, as soon as you drop them on Saturday, nobody can touch them, and then you have to send them to the bidding. Sounds like Nate's got some fun strategies. Pretty good savvy player there. But that's going to do it for me, guys. If you guys do have any questions, again, you guys can always hit me up in the Discord or follow me on Twitter or comment this video here. Tomorrow night, we'll be going live for our Start Sit program, 7 o'clock Central Time. So if you guys want to join me, do so. We'll go over all the practice reports, and we'll get through all my Start Sit charts and look at the games. Let's see what Humanity says here. I need an elite receiver. Thoughts on who I can aim for? My guys, Waddle, Ayuk, Godwin, Palmer. Palmer probably is not going to be an attractive sell piece right now. If you could sell, I'm open to selling Godwin. I kind of want to keep Ayuk and Waddle. You can try and sell Godwin and Palmer. Godwin's coming off of a nice game here, so you could potentially flip those two guys. I'm trying to think of some names here off the top. I'm going to pull up I'm going to pull up a list here of some players that I might be able to sell for. Let's take a look here real quick. All right, we got this back up. We're back. All right, so Chris Godwin right now in a full PPR format. Let's see where he ranks. So he's wide receiver 36. I think Godwin plus Palmer you can maybe buy low on a Chris Olave. You can maybe buy low on a Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin type. I don't know if you're going to be able to get an elite receiver. You can, again, try for Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave. You can maybe try Garrett Wilson. I like that one too. But yeah, I would try and keep Waddle, Ayuk. If you're trading Waddle or Ayuk, like maybe Waddle plus Palmer might yield you an Amon-Ra, probably not a CeeDee Lamb. But again, I think I'm going to hold on to Waddle, Ayuk, try and sell Godwin. If you can sell Godwin plus a running back too, that might yield you some of the guys that we mentioned. Was those two Deontay and Sanders for Bijan? And nice. Deontay and Sanders. Yeah, Bijan's kind of, or Sanders is junk right now, so that's a good way to move him. I mean, in a 10-team league, man, like when you're getting the best player in a deal, it really doesn't matter because you're sending someone some junk. So, it's all good. Otherwise, Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr. Let me look at that Saints schedule real quick for you there, Harris. Looks like the Saints are going to get the Vikings. I'll go with Derek Carr here against the Vikings. I will take a peek real quick at the Buccaneers schedule. Titans. I'm open to it. Titans defense does allow quarterback and wide receiver points here, but I think Derek Carr is a better play. You think Elliott is worth carrying through the bye? Elliott. Is that Ezekiel Elliott? I'm not sure who Elliott is. Is that the kicker Elliott? Is that Ezekiel Elliott? If it's Zeke, yes. If it's a kicker, if it's a kicker, I mean, that might be the one kicker that I'd be open to hanging on to, and especially in a 10-team league. I think I would hold on to Jake Elliott there, Nate. It just makes a little bit more sense for me, so I like it. And yeah, that Saints schedule is pretty juicy. But either way, guys, I'm going to get out of here for the evening. We'll see you guys tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Come hang out. We'll talk about all the games for Week 9 and get your questions answered. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll see you in a future video. Peace.